On the board here, I wrote down, today is the second day of Shvat. So I wanted to let you know what history, what happened on the second day of Shvat in 1991. Anyone know? Second day of Shvat, something pretty big happened related to the Middle East on the actual, this day, today, Day Shvat. And it's hinted in the Pasuk in Tehillim, chapter 2, the second day of the month. Chapter 2, Pasuk Tes, Berak Beis, Pasuk Tes, there's a Pasuk that says, Tero'im b'shevet barzel. First, let me tell you what happened. The Iraqi War, the Gulf War, started on Beis Shvat. Beis Shvat is hinted in the Tehillim, where David HaMelech says, Tero'im b'shevet barzel. Tero'im means you shall crush them, b'shborotam, b'shevet. Shevet means a rod, stick. Barzel, with an iron rod. Crush them with an iron rod, referring to Persia, Iraq, or Bavel, all the same, all connected. So on that day, on the actual day where it's the Beis Shvat is the same letters as B'Shevet. Crush them on Beis Shvat, B'Shevet with a rod made of iron. It's an interesting thought I wanted to share with you. Concerning the month of Shvat, we just started yesterday. Yesterday was Rosh Chodesh. I want to talk a little bit about the month of Shvat. The month of Shvat is highlighted as the month where Moshe Rabbeinu translated the Torah in 70 languages. The Rebbe has a Sicha devoted just for that episode. Why is it that Moshe had to translate the Torah into 70 languages? All the Jews spoke Hebrew then. Everyone understood Hebrew. What was the purpose? Later on, and generations later, maybe, but at that point, everyone understood Hebrew. What was the purpose of having to translate the Torah in 70 languages? And in short, just to give you a short answer, the Rebbe's response is that everything has to go through Moshe. In order for our learning, when we learn right now, we're learning Torah in English. Other languages, not Hebrew, not Lashon Kodesh. Even Yiddish is also not a holy language. Language that Jews use, but it's not Lashon Kodesh. So when you learn Torah in any language besides Hebrew, you might think, since the Torah was given in Hebrew, so if you learn Torah in Hebrew, then that language has some kedusha to it. It has holiness to it. And you sanctify yourself when you learn, being that you're learning in the holy language, so it works. But if you learn in English, it doesn't have that power, perhaps. So in order for us today, when we learn and we study in a different language, in a language that's not Lashon Kodesh, for us to have the experience of the kedusha of have the same level of kedusha of the Torah in its original language, for that, Moshe had to go through Moshe. Moshe, by translating the Torah in 70 languages, gave us the power that when we learn, whatever language we learn in, it should have the same kedusha as when we learn in Hebrew. Later on, the Torah was actually written, inscribed in 70 different languages with their alphabet. That would mean that when you have a book written in English, but it's a Torah book, a book about Torah, written in English or any other language that's not a holy language, written in English letters or French letters or Russian letters that do not have the kedusha of the Aleph Beis, those letters become holy also. And vice versa. Hebrew, if you speak Hebrew, but you speak in Divrei Chol, words that are not holy, has no kedusha, even though you're using Hebrew words, Hebrew language, or Hebrew alphabet. So by Moshe translating the Torah into 70 languages and also inscribing, writing, it was written also in 70 languages, the entire Torah, the five Chumashim, the five books of Moses, the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, it became possible to introduce kedusha into any language and also into the alphabet, any alphabet. Not just the language, but also the writing, the alphabet. This is what the Rebbe says. So it's the month of Shvat is when Moshe Rabbeinu did this. Look into Chumash Devarim, it says on the month of Shvat, that's when Moshe, Aleph Shvat, Rosh Chodesh Shvat, he began to prepare the Jewish people for the next generation. He passed away Zayin Adar, which is 5 weeks later, a little over 5 weeks later. And a month and a week before, he prepared the Jewish people that when they will enter Eretz Yisrael, they should realize that they have this special power that was given to them. The Rebbe also said it's connected to the conquest. In order to conquer the non-Jewish world, there has to be a little conquest within Torah. Everything that happens in the world happens through Torah. Torah is called the Pinkas Sois, the blueprint of creation. Like an architect, an architect before he builds, you have the blueprint. So whenever you want to accomplish something in the world, it has to first take place within the realm of Torah. So when the Torah was translated into different languages, thereby elevating those languages, it gave us the koyach to enter Eretz Yisrael and to sanctify the land, the actual land itself. So the world, the land is a part of the world, part of this Olam Hazeh Hagashmi. In order to be able to sanctify, to elevate this world, you first have to find the same idea within the Torah, where a non-holy language has now become a Torah language. Also, it's also a month connected to which Shevet. We know that 12 months in the year correspond to the 12 tribes. So which tribe is connected the 11th month of the year? It's the 11th month of the year, Shvat. Nisan is, you start from Nisan, Ir, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul. And Shvat is number 11, Adar is number 12. Which two of the 12 tribes correspond to Shvat and Adar? The last two who were born last. Who was born last? The last two tribes? No. Yosef and Benjamin. Adar is easy. Benjamin, how is Benjamin connected to the month of Adar? Mordechai was a descendant from which tribe? Ben Yemini, Shevet Benjamin. Mordechai, also Esther, both were descendants from Benjamin. And they are the heroes of Purim. Adar. Shvat. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I don't know how you missed it. I don't know. I didn't understand it. There's another. How is Shvat connected to Yosef? Shvat, as we said before, is the month of transforming a language that's not holy and making it holy. Moshe Rabbeinu translated the Torah on the month of Shvat, in the beginning of the month of Shvat, into a different language, into 70 languages. What was Yosef famous for? A lot of things. But one of the things he was famous for was his very name. I mentioned many times. Why was he called Yosef? Why did Rachel call her son Yosef by that name? Hashem would add to me another child. But that's a very strange type of name. When you name a child, you don't name a child, I'd like to have another one. How does that feel?
You're not enough.
You're not good enough. But I'll have another one, so now I feel okay. This one was a reject.
Wasn't it because she knew that Yosef was going to bring a baby then?
Oh, well, that's not a simple shot. It says Yosef Hashem li ben acher. It could have just said Yosef Hashem li ben. That would also mean, Yosef means another child. What does Yosef mean? Add. Yosef Hashem li ben would obviously mean another child. Why would you have to add the word acher? Or Yosef Hashem li od ben. Must say Yosef Hashem li ben acher. Child, other. To take someone who is very far from Judaism, far from Yiddishkeit, where Judaism is something else to them. It's not who they are. They don't define themselves by their Jewishness. They are estranged to Judaism, alien to Judaism. They are Americans. They are Jewish Americans, yes, but they're Americans. They're not American Jews, they're Jewish Americans. And Yosef is here to change that, to turn an acher into a ben, into someone who feels comfortable with Judaism like a father, like a child to a father. That Judaism is like their parent, their father and mother. Yiddishkeit that's my family. The Rebbe also has another type, another interpretation, that even someone who already is a Ben Acher, to make him a new level Ben, a much greater child than the child he was before. But even in someone with a tzaddik, Yosef is not only to change, to take Bali Tshuva, to turn people that are far and bring them close, but even people that are very close can make them even greater. We don't ignore tzaddikim either. Chabad is not only here to make Bali Tshuva, Chabad is here to change the whole world, even the world that thinks they're tzaddikim, or they might be tzaddikim. They're great. They learn and they do mitzvahs and they do everything good, and they're good-hearted people. But there's still much more that they're missing without learning Chassidus. So we take the tzaddik and make him into a Chassidish tzaddik, Ben Acher. I heard once that the previous Rebbe said about his son-in-law, our Rebbe. He said about him, this is when they were trying to tell him, what do you need your son-in-law for? Get another son-in-law. Child is a child, you can take them, but why take your son-in-law? And he said, that son-in-law like that you can't get anywhere. He said, previous Rebbe said that about him, that he's, the small things were that he knows the entire Talmud, Babylonian and Jerusalem Talmud and all the Midrashim and the entire library of Chabad. He knows that all, but that was the smallest thing. When it comes to his year of Shamayim, to his fear of heaven, I stand in awe. Previous Rebbe is saying this about the Rebbe. I stand in awe. And yet, here's the final thing he said. And from day to day, I cannot recognize him. He changes drastically, going from one level to the next level each day. This is what I heard. I don't know the source, but I heard this from a pretty authentic source a while back. That the Rebbe is a new person. He's pretty special before being the new person. And he goes from level to level, and he's beyond recognition, beyond the Friedrich Rebbe's recognition, not beyond our recognition. So about our Rebbe, how the Rebbe says, I can't recognize him from day to day. So the month of Shvat is connected to the previous Rebbe also, because his name is Yosef too. And it's not a coincidence. It's connected. The Yosef of this generation, the Rebbe referred to previous Rebbe as the Yosef of this generation, is connected to the Yosef all the way in Chumash. What's the connection? The previous Rebbe was the first Rebbe to translate Chassidus into different languages, simplifying a mimer in simple Yiddish that anyone can understand. He started it. The Rebbe, of course, went way beyond, but he started it. And also the previous Rebbe came to America. And when he came to America, what did he say? America is not in Yiddish. America is nicht anders. America is not acher. It's not different. He took the acher, the America, and people were saying to the previous Rebbe, you can't change America. There's no way. You're going to look like a fool. People who cared about the previous Rebbe. And boy, did that give him pain and suffering. That some of his loyal Hasidim were telling him it's not possible in America. America is an icebox. Mind your own business. It's not going to work over here. People are very cold. He took the acher and turned the acher into a bang. He started with the previous Rebbe. So he had the same thing as Yosef, the same quality of Yosef. The month of Shvat is all about going out into the world and changing the world. Even if it means you have to sometimes stop what you're doing and change your normal pattern of, sitting inside and growing in your own personal life. You have to worry about what's going on in the world out there. It's pikuach nefesh. It's life-threatening, spiritually life-threatening. People are drowning in their Judaism, they're drowning because they don't have Judaism. They're drowning in their lives are being wasted. Our job is to save lives. So this is, there's a lot to talk about. I can go on and on and on about, whoever has another whole Sicha about how Shvat is connected to the idea of transforming, but I'm not going to share that because it's too long. I want to mention one more thing concerning the Parsha, and then we'll go to the Sicha. The Parsha is highlighted by a lot of things. There's three of the 10 plagues, last 3 plagues. There's 7 plagues in Bo'era, 3 plagues in Bo. Locust, Arba, Choshech, darkness, and Makas Bechoros, firstborn, mighty the firstborn. That was the end. This Parsha is the Parsha where it's over. We're free people. But it also has the first mitzvah. given to the Jewish people as a nation. What's the first mitzvah? First mitzvah mentioned in Chumash for the Jewish people, not for individuals. Huh? There you go. Sanctifying the new moon. Rosh Chodesh. What's so special about that? Why is that the first? First mitzvah has to be, if it's first, it has to be very, very basic and fundamental. Why is the sanctifying of the new moon so special? So one of the answers, and if you remember the first Rashi of Chumash, Rashi says, should the Torah have begun with this mitzvah? It's a book of laws, isn't it? Sefer Shel Dinim, the book of laws, which should begin with the first mitzvah of HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. And Rashi gives an answer. The Torah started with Bereshis Bara Elokim, but there's a connection between Bereshis Bara Elokim and HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem means, first of all, means that Hashem gave us a new beginning, as I mentioned in the previous class. The new beginning is, instead of Tishrei being our own, the Rosh Hashanah being the beginning of the year, that's for the rest of the world. But for the Jewish people, Nisan, the month of miracles, that's your Rosh Hashanah. That is also, in addition to the normal Rosh Hashanah, it's also your HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. Nisim, miracles, that's your cup of tea. This is the Jewish people live on miracles. We're a miraculous people. Sanctifying the month of Nisan is the month that we're talking about here, the month of Pesach, the month of Nisan, is also very special, because here's what we're told. Malachim ask Hashem up there, when is Rosh Chodesh? Hashem says, what are you asking me for? It's not up to me. Whatever the Jews will decide when Rosh Chodesh is, that's when it's Rosh Chodesh. And the Basin has the power, even if they made a mistake, they sanctified the new moon by mistake, it remains intact. And they can delay it. We also have the power to also delay a certain month by saying it's not going to be Pesach this month. We're going to make an extra month in Adar. Now we have a calendar. But back then they were able to, at the last minute, decide we're going to make a second month Adar and Pesach will be delayed. Now this is something, I'm going to tell you something. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but I'll share with you anyways. This power of changing the year, adding a month in the year, can have an impact on the anatomy of a little 3-year-old girl. The Gemara says that once a girl has reached the age of 3, her virginity, if it's lost, she was, violated, it will not come back. She's no longer what we call a basula. Below 3, she's the baby. Below 3, then it would come back. What happens if she already became 3 years old? Her birthday was Rosh Chodesh Adar, and then Rosh Chodesh Adar, and then they basically decided to delay the month. Her birthday was the second month of Adar. She was born on a year when there was 2 months, but this year is only 1 month. So if you were born, let's say on Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni, and this year right now there's no 2 others, only 1 Adar. When it comes Rosh Chodesh Adar, you're 3 years old. She became 3. So now her body is a body of a 3-year-old. What happens when the rabbis decide, no, I'm sorry, little girl, you're not 3 yet. You have to wait till next month. We're going to add a month. So she becomes no longer 3. And her body goes back to a below 3-year-old child, and the nature of her body is different than a 3-year-old. The rabbi is giving a ruling that could transform the nature of this little girl. The power of transformation, the power to change the world. This is given to the Jewish people. This is the power of this first mitzvah, that we can change the whole world. We can affect the entire world. And that connects with Bereshis Bara Elokim. Hashem created the world in the beginning. Why did he create the world? Bereshis means because of the Jewish people. So the very beginning of Chumash and the very first mitzvah both show us how powerful the Jewish people are, how incredible we are. Okay. The Sicha that you have now, Sicha B'Shalach, it's next week's parsha B'Shalach. So I want to continue with B'Tachin. It's a very, very a fundamental subject, and this is about the man. The subject I'm going to give you a preview of the first part of the Sicha, which you don't have a copy of. I started from the middle of the Sicha on page 218. Oh, 1 second. No, 1 second. The 218, yeah. Hold on a second. Yeah. Yeah, so before 218, there are a few more pages before. Let me just give you a preview of what the Sicha is about, then we'll get to the first page. So the Sicha starts off with a question of the importance of reciting a certain prayer related to the manna that came from Shamayim. So the Alter Rebbe, in the first edition of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe wrote the first edition, then he changed things and he wrote a Shulchan Aruch over again, called Madura Kama, Madura Basra. First edition, second edition. In the first edition, when the Alter Rebbe talks about saying the parsha of the man in your davening, he gives the reason. Gives the following reason. He says the reason why we are supposed to say this paragraph is to reinforce our emunah that our food supply comes from Hashem. Just like the man, you could have gathered a lot of man, and you were left with a certain amount. Hamarbe, those that tried to increase didn't succeed, and if you decrease, you got the same same amount of food, whether you try to gather more or gather less. It's not up to how you work. In other words, this teaches us a lesson that your food supply, your parnasa, it depends on the one above. He is the one. So it's a fundamental belief that Hashem is who controls everything in this world. And you could say, well, I'll work day and night. No, it won't help. Don't overwork, because your destiny has been decided by Hashem, and the man teaches us that. Learn a lesson from the man to believe that Hashem is in control over your finances. That's what the Alter Rebbe writes in the first Madura. It's emunah in Hashem's ability to control your sustenance. But when it comes to the second edition, the Alter Rebbe changes, and he says, no. What is the lesson from the man? Not belief, not emunah, bitachon. That just like when the man was given, it was only given one day at a time. Every day we had to trust that we'll also get our next day's supply. And then the next day went by, we're left with nothing. You gotta trust Hashem will supply for the next day. Dvar yom b'yomo. We didn't get more than one day at a time. So it's a lesson in trusting of Hashem. Why did the Alter Rebbe change from having faith that Hashem is the source of our parnasa to the trusting in Hashem that He will supply you? Why did he go from one to the other? So the Rebbe tries to say in the beginning, perhaps the difference between the first and the second would be emunah. Let me ask you a question. When you believe in Hashem, do you believe in Hashem only certain times, or it's 24/7, 365? The belief in Hashem is not a mitzvah that takes place at a certain time. It's not based on circumstances. When do I believe in Hashem? When things will start materializing. No, the belief that Hashem can and will is something that is constant. So whether it's Shabbos or whether it's a weekday, even on Shabbos, are you allowed to believe on Shabbos that Hashem will give you parnasa? Of course. It's a belief. You're not asking for your needs. You're believing that Hashem is the one that will supply you with your needs. Emunah is also shayach for Shabbos. It has nothing to do with a problem. You're not allowed to ask for your needs on Shabbos. Like on Shmon Esrei, we have a shorter Shmon Esrei on Shabbos. We don't ask for all our needs. It's a much shorter Shmon Esrei. Only 7 blessings instead of 18 or 19. But the belief is not a request. It's a belief. Every Jew has. We all believe. Bitachon, on the other hand, when is bitachon? When is it that we exercise bitachon? When we have a circumstance where things are tough in our lives. When things aren't going well in our lives, then we have to come on to bitachon. So bitachon is something that usually is based on circumstance, not constant. Thus, you would think, I'll explain in a second. Thus, you would think that if that's the case, that on Shabbos, one should not say the parsha of the man. If you say that the parsha of the man is to teach us that we should trust in Hashem that He will supply us with our needs, that shouldn't fit with Shabbat. On Shabbat, you don't ask Hashem, you don't deal with your needs. On Shabbos, we're above and beyond the world needs. During the weekday, yes, but on Shabbos, no. But yet the Alter Rebbe, when he talks about, in the second edition, when he discusses the importance of the man being an exercise of bitachon, doesn't say you don't say it on Shabbos. He says it should be said on Shabbos also. He said quite clearly it should be said just like during the weekdays, it should also be said on Shabbos. So here we see that the Alter Rebbe in the second edition, even though he's changing from Amunah to bitachon, and you would think bitachon is only something that you should ask Hashem, that you should exercise during the weekdays. And on Shabbos, you should have your mind on, not on your panasa. On Shabbos, you don't have money, you don't have your money, your finances on your mind. On Shabbos, we rest from all that. But yet the Alter Rebbe says we should say the parasha of the man even on Shabbos too. How does that fit? So here's where the Sicha is, where the copy that I made is where this is where it comes in. That's the question that the Rebbe wants to resolve. On page 218, the first page, to resolve the above question, you should first add, I'll read the first paragraph, a further point, analyzing the approach to trust in the conduct of Rabbi Yesa the elder. There's a certain person whose name was Rabbi Yesa. He was an old person. He was called Rabbi Yesa the elder, as described in the Zohar of this week's Torah reading, in connection with the man. Every day, Rabbi Yesa would do something very strange. He would prepare his meal. He had all the food. Just had to cook it. He had all the food prepared, but he wouldn't ready to prepare. He had his food ready to cook, but he wouldn't start with his preparations until only after requesting his sustenance from Hashem. As he would explain, a meal should not be prepared until it has been given by the king. In other words, he doesn't have the food yet. It's in Hashem's domain. He doesn't feel that the food is on his table, that it's his yet. It's Hashem's. And he said, I'm not going to start using this food or try to cook and process it until I ask Hashem to give me what I need, to provide me with this food. This calls for an explanation. The food for the meal was already in his possession and only needed to be prepared, as the Zohar states. He had his food for that day. What is then the meaning of his request that God grant him this food? Why would he ask for food when you have it already on the table? This is the question that the Rebbe is asking. Okay. Who wants to help me over here? Anyone? You want to add something? Sure.
Very time to remember like everything from Hashem, because if you go in and you walk out, you don't have money, so first time you think, okay, I walk in and do like, so it's very out of the time I think about it.
You don't have to think about it, but are you a mamin? Are you a believer?
Yeah.
That's all. If anyone would ask you, do you believe? You'd say, of course, that's what I'm saying. The fact that you would answer, of course, you believe he created the world, you believe that he could, you're not thinking about it, you're not occupying, it's not occupying your mind maybe, but the emunah is there. That's what we're saying. We're not trying to say that a person should think about his emunah 24/7. You can't do that. You have to focus on other things. But the emunah is there. Every kol b'nei Yisrael ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. Every Jew has, by some Jews, it's very superficial. Like the guy was stealing and asked Hashem, please Hashem, I trust that you will help me. I believe that you can give me my parnasa. I want to succeed in the theft. So he davens and says Kapitel Tilim, they should succeed in this theft. So he has the belief. But so whether it's internalized or not, there might be different levels. But every Jew has this belief, and it's embedded in his character. It's part of his nature. A Jew believes. So that's not related to weekday or Shabbos. That's 24/7. That's what we're saying. Mitzvot tamidiyut. But then there's the heritage of bitachon. You can't have bitachon, you would think at least, unless the circumstances where you are in trouble. I need to have a miracle. And I therefore need to exercise bitachon. But during Shabbos, we don't think about our problems, our weekday problems. You're not supposed to think about it. In fact, by thinking about it, you might not get successful in a miracle will not happen, and you won't be granted. You're not allowed to. It's a violation of Shabbos to worry about your parnasa on Shabbos. Even to say, I have bitachon on Hashem, things will go well, without worry. It's also wrong. Bitachon is a weekday thing. You would think, at least. The Rebbe will soon tell us not that. It depends what kind of a talking you have. We'll soon see that's the whole Sicha. So here we have an interesting person whose name is Rabbi Yosef, and he acted quite weirdly. He has food ready to cook, and he's saying, I can't start preparing my food until I ask Hashem to give me the food. But you have it, it's already here. What do you mean give me the food? It's yours. It's given already. Okay. Who wants to say? Me? Anyone? I got the hint. It is possible to offer the following explanation. Our sages teach that Yosef was punished. I mentioned this last week for having requested of the chief butler. He said to him, mention me to Paro. On this teaching, Rabbeinu Bachya comments, heaven forbid that Yosef the righteous should place his trust in the chief butler. He wasn't placing his trust in a human being. You're not allowed to do that. He trusted in Hashem alone. He only felt that Hashem had engineered, page 219, his encounter with the chief butler so that he could perform a miracle through him. Okay. If that's the case, what's wrong with that? Why then was Yosef punished? And the answer, because in the chief butler, he sought an instrument, a casual factor. Who tells you to look, if you're Yosef HaTzadik, who is giving you the right to look for a factor, to look for some kind of garment or instrument through which God would send him his salvation? And it is not fitting that tzaddikim of this stature, of Yosef's stature, should seek a casual factor. He was punished because he should have trusted that Hashem, the cause of all causes, alone would provide him with the appropriate casual factor without his seeking it. What are you looking for? Don't look for anything. Hashem will provide you. He will give. He will also provide you with the instrument, how he will somehow take you out of prison. Your job is not to look for any ways. This comment has been questioned. Wait, with regard to bitachon, aren't we told? So the question is, on this answer we're asking, what's wrong? Why is it that it wasn't okay for Yosef? This comment has been questioned. With regard to bitachon, it is stated in Chovos Halavavos that there's an obligation to seek casual factors, which we mentioned a few weeks ago, through which God, his beneficence, will flow, and this thesis is supported by several proofs. Why then was Yosef punished for seeking an instrument through which divine assistance would be expressed? And this has been answered by explaining that there are two levels of trust. There's two levels. The lower level is as follows. The natural mode, there are times when the manner in which divine beneficence is elicited and proceeds to descend follows ordinary norms, conforming to the natural pattern, as expressed in the language of Chassidus. This mode characterizes the descent and flow of divine energy that is called Memalik Olamim. If we're connecting to Hashem, after Hashem is already contracted and he is adapted and is connected to the world, he is in the world and meshed with the world, the divine light which invests itself in the world, it's a worldly level of godliness. On this level, if Hashem is acting through Mamalik Olamim, on this level, it is necessary to seek an instrument. Then he's telling you, things won't happen unless you look for ways yourself of how the bracha will come about, materialize. And to find conduits, it's your job to find conduits within nature for this form of divine influence is conveyed specifically through the conduits of the natural order. When Hashem is exercising his lower level, his Mamalik Olamim, then he's asking us, it's up to you. You have to do something about it. You have to find an instrument within nature. That's number one. Number two, B on the next page, a supernatural mode. There are times when it is obvious that Hashem is relating to a person or the Jewish people as a whole in a way that beneficence is elicited and drawn down in a manner that does not accord with the pattern of nature. There are miracles happening. Hashem is showing, I'm taking care of things. As expressed in the language of Chassidus, this mode characterizes the flow of divinity that's called Sovev Kol Almin, which is divinity that transcends all the worlds and doesn't get enmeshed in the world, doesn't get connected to the world, and therefore things would change relative to the different levels. When God relates to a person in such a way, a higher level of trust is required. So when Hashem is not contracted, he's showing himself as he is, whereas beyond all the world, we have to also let him take care of things. He's expected to rely solely on Hashem's control of existence, taking no steps whatsoever, rather trusting that Hashem will certainly help him by arranging an appropriate conduit for his blessing. Okay. Now, Yosef HaTzadik, Yosef the righteous HaTzadik, who was always connected with a level of godliness that transcends nature, which is why he was able to concentrate on talking to an Egyptian, to a depraved individual. Just look at the IRGC today at Iran, leaders of Iran. You'll see what corruption is. And he was dealing with Egyptians. By the way, I have to tell you a story, which I'll tell if I get a chance at the end of the class. The Tanya printing in Tehran. An incredible thing happened. And then another story with a rabbi and a priest and a minister. It's not a joke, a real story. Also connected to Iran. But I don't know if I'll have time. Let's first see it together. So Yosef dealt with, the garbage of humanity, Ervas Ha'aretz, the low lives, and how to get into their private, every little nuance, every little detail, every nook and cranny of their life. You would think while he was doing that, he couldn't concentrate on Hashem. No problem. He was in two worlds at once. How can you be in two worlds at once? The life that's Mamalekol Alman does not allow you to be in two worlds. Either you're here or you're there. Mamalekol Alman means every single world had its own tailor-made level of godliness. So if you're getting your life from when Hashem is lowering himself into the world, then you cannot focus on two things at once. It's impossible. But Yosef was connected to the above the clouds, to the Hashem above the Tzimtzum, above any contraction, where Hashem is equalizing, where everything is equal to him. So if that's the case, just like Hashem is not limited, can be every place all at once. Yosef, who was connected with that level of God, can be in two worlds at once. Even the others couldn't do that, by the way. Ram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they were powerful people. They were not like the Shvatim. I mentioned last week, the Shvatim were like the weekdays. They were very easily distracted. They were tzaddikim. But if they were to be involved with the rest of the world, they would lose, they would fall. They had to run away and become shepherds. Seclusion, communion with Hashem, block out the world. The others were one step higher. They could be in the middle of all the tumult and phase it out and ignore it. Imagine standing at the Avot. They could be in the middle of Manhattan, in the middle of San Francisco, and all the noise with all the garbage going around, all the shtusim, and they don't hear it. Lo shomim. Wow. And Yosef, who shomea? He's shomea, and he's listening and he's hearing what you have to say. There's a lo mavalvel, and it's not mavalvel. Not because he's ignoring it. He can be in two worlds at once. He had to be in two worlds. He was a viceroy in Mitzrayim. You can't ignore. You're talking to them. You got to get into their personal lives. And it's pretty grub, pretty coarse. And this coarseness did not faze him one bit. So Yosef is connected to Soyvev Kol Alman, to the God that is transcendent. Where Domem, Shalom HaSiyah HaGashmi, inanimate matter, a stone in this world, and Olam HaSilut, that's Shaveh. Eitzel Yosef, Nahakol Shaveh. Relative to Hashem, Ruchni is, Gashmi is, Domem, Tzameya, Chai, Medaber, Siya, Yetzira, Bria, Atzilos, Hakol Shaveh. Hakol Ayin V'Yefes Mamish. God, Yesh Rak, Hashem Echad. Wow. So Yosef was able to connect to Hashem. So Hashem was angry at him. Why are you looking for? Why are you searching at Sarah Mashkin? Why are you looking for? Someone like you doesn't have to look for anything. You're connected to Hashem. So Hashem is doing everything. The only world you have is the world where Hashem exists and nothing else exists. That's why he was punished. The others wouldn't be punished, but Yosef was punished. So he was greater to a certain degree than even Yaakov and Yitzchak and Abraham. Fiddis Chabad talks a lot about Yosef, more than any other, and that his greatness, how great he was. That's why the brothers couldn't figure him out. They thought he must be something. He can't be, It can't be that someone's on this level. It's impossible. The Haim Lehi Kiru, they couldn't recognize such a level. It didn't exist. It's almost like the Goyish world can't recognize, Jews can't be that perfect. They can't really be chosen. There's something, what's their trick? What's the gimmick? There has to be something wrong with them. And they start hating. As someone once said, a non-Jewish lady, a non-Jewish woman said, the Jews are the mirror of the world.
Wow.
And she said, you know what that means? Yeah, if you look into the mirror, and the mirror that you look into shows a dirty face, so instead of cleaning your face, don't blame the mirror. They break the mirror. It's the mirror's fault. My face isn't dirty. The mirror is the problem. We are the mirror. We make them look uncomfortable. They can't be. We know what human beings are like. I know myself. It can't be. It looks terrible. If that's the case, I feel so awful about myself. The Jews can't be so great because that makes me feel awful. Not mamish like that. But al derech zeh, the Shvatim felt Yosef, impossible. There's something, a sakana. He's modern. He has a nice look. He's handsome. You know, he learned the languages. He hangs around with H. Potiphar. You know, this is dangerous. That's why he's so successful, because he goes out there, and all the non-Jews love him. And even I mentioned a few weeks ago that even what's his name, Antiochus, the Gematria Yosef, Melech Yavam, the Gematria Yosef. Was Antiochus saying to the Jewish people, "This is my man. This Jew, we love it. Jews like this, we love. He's modern. He's down to earth. He dresses normal. It's not the brim up and then the kapot, you know, and diamonds all day. He's like, listen, be normal. Be like us. We like Jews." Kiss for Lachem on the horn of an ox, right on the horn of an ox. Why the horn of an ox? That you have no chelik, that you have no portion. The horn of an ox, Joseph was compared to the horn of an ox. Karnei re'em karnav. The pasuk in Chumash that Yosef was compared to the beautiful horns of an ox. Say you're like Yosef, and we'll love you. But that wasn't the case. Yosef was so great; he was able to be connected in communication with Hashem, dveikus on Hashem to the highest level. Bo b'shah that he's mama sitting and talking to an Egyptian. Two worlds at once. Chabad Rabbeim also had this power, by the way, of being in two worlds at once. The Frierdiker Rebbe was able to write in his young year 2 letters to different people. Can you write 2 letters to different? Try to write an aleph and a beis together. 2 letters to different people while talking on the phone to a third person. The special power given to Chabad Rabbeim, to the Shneerson. Yeah. But the Frierdiker Rebbe is the first Rebbe that started. I mean, we saw Begola, he came to America, the shores of America. Anyway, so here the Rebbe goes further. Wait. The difference between these 2 levels that we're talking applies even when, so here's the Chiddush. Until now, we thought B'tachon is only when you really have a need for it. You're in trouble and you need a miracle. And then when you go, well, I believe Hashem will give it. I have full trust that Hashem will come forth. I'm calm. I'm serene. Wow. But you know what? B'tachon also can be expressed even when, this is even harder, when you don't need a miracle. How about when things are going well? Well, then I know. That's just like B'tachon, right? Wrong. Even when things are going 100% well, there's no need for a miracle. I have all my food, everything I have, everything I need, beyond what I need. I have everything. Things are going too well. So, where's the B'tachon, right? No need for it. Which is why we thought before, it's not for Shabbat, it's only for the weekdays. To hear the Rebbe is going to say, no, you're making a big mistake. The difference between these 2 levels of B'tachon applies even when one does fashion a conduit for God's beneficence. Let's say you already made a keli. You're living the normal life, and you did what you had to do to prepare your food, to get your food on the table. A person following the first approach is required to make a conduit because God relates to him in such a way that divine beneficence is elicited according to the pattern of nature. Accordingly, nature and natural process acquire a certain standing. As a result, you must seek a conduit and an instrument through which God's blessing will be conveyed. We're talking about a person who's okay. He doesn't believe, God forbid, that, well, I don't know if Hashem is involved anymore. You know, I don't think Hashem is really, I think he retired for the for the 2,000 years in Golis. Chas v'sholom. He believes, why am I going to work? Because Hashem said that you have to go to work, and you have to do things according to nature. That's why. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. But after Hashem made this rule, how do you feel? What is the reality in your life? What do you really feel? You feel the same when you need a miracle, when you don't need a miracle. When the food's on the table, do you feel that you need, I mean, is the food a little closer to what you need than if it's, nowhere to be found when there's a famine in the world? Obviously not. Baruch Hashem, I have it. I have it now. So for normal people, not like Rabbi Yossi, the elder, for normal people, even if you believe that Hashem is the one in control, and it's only because of him that we have to do things according to nature, yeah, true. But once Hashem made this rule, I believe in the laws of nature. Not because they're real on their own accord, because Hashem made it real. So be practical. Why should I use B'tachon? Why should I have to have B'tachon? Everything's fine. I'll thank Hashem for I'll be gracious to him. But have B'tachon now? What for? That's what is normal. But then there's something that's not normal. It's beyond normal. This is not the case, he said, with a person who trusts at a loftier level, who needs to take no steps whatsoever. A person who's like Yosef, or like this Rabbi Yosef, who is pretty much like Yosef also, to take no steps whatsoever. On the next page, he says like this. This is different. This explanation enables us to clarify, on page 222, another aspect of the conduit of Rabbi Yosef the elder. Hold on a second. Wait, where's 221? I'm missing here again. I wonder why.
No.
Yeah. Okay. She made the copies again?
Don't you have 221 maybe over there? See the other pages?
I think. No, it's missing.
Even on those papers?
Yeah.
Those papers?
No, these papers don't have it all, have a different Sicha altogether. This is pretty. Maybe it was my fault. It's all 221. Let me just tell you what it says there. I'll have to read it myself. What it says here is like this. This is not the case of the person who trusts at a loftier level, who needs to take no steps whatsoever, only trust in Hashem. The process of nature are obviously absolutely of no import in his eyes. This is why he need not seek out a conduit. Hence, even when a natural conduit or instrument for his livelihood does exist, he doesn't consider his livelihood to be any closer to him because of it than it would be if the conduit did not exist, since neither the conduit nor the instrument in its own right is of any importance in his eyes. Everything's a miracle to him. In other words, by him, nature, I don't believe in nature. Hashem Hashem can do what he wants, but I don't feel any different when I need a miracle than when I don't need a miracle. I still feel the need to ask Hashem. The same way, since neither the conduit nor the instrument in its own right is of any importance, his sole perception of the situation is that he receives everything directly from Hashem. Indeed, he views even the conduit or the instrument as created for him by Hashem together with his livelihood. This also explains why Rabbi Yosef the elder would say, "We will not prepare the meal." I think you might have it from last week, page 221, until it is given by the king, even though he had his food for that day. His approach to B'tachon, Rabbi Yosef's approach, was such that he perceived every single activity not as his own doing, but as made possible by Hashem. So even when the food was already in his home and needed only to be prepared, he felt that it was not his food that he was taking and preparing, but that it was being given by the king. It's still in Hashem's domain. I don't have it yet. At that very moment, Hashem was giving it to him. But it's Hashem still giving it. Therefore, he felt it necessary to request his food of Hashem, just as he would ask God for his food when it was not in his possession. This person didn't feel that the food has come to him, arrived on his table, until he would daven, and now, after davening, now he would believe that the food is given to him. So the Rebbe said on page 222, now we can go to 222. On page 222, This explanation enables us to clarify another aspect of the conduit or base of the elder. Now we can understand why even on Shabbos. Let's skip to the next paragraph. In the light of the concept discussed above on page 222, that Rabbi Yosef saw his food as being granted to him by Hashem at every moment, we can gain a new understanding of what it means to trust and rely on him. Praying for the satisfaction of one's material needs on Shabbos is out of place only when the individual is focusing on himself. I have needs. I need Hashem to take care of my needs. That you can't do on Shabbos. But Rabbi Yosef didn't feel he had needs. He had, when he was davening for the food, he wasn't davening because he needed the food. It was Hashem's needs. He felt, I need to proclaim how Hashem is kind, that he gives people food. His whole davening was not to express, Hashem, come to the rescue. That you can't do on Shabbos. His davening was, in other words, he was davening for food. It's another service. It's like davening. He was doing a mitzvah. He felt like he's doing a mitzvah to proclaim Hashem's kindness, to be able to express how he believes that Hashem is so kind. He was having a relationship with Hashem, He wasn't really, because if a person senses their own needs, you're not going to feel the same when the food's on the table as when the food is not. The fact he felt the same means it's not about me. There's Hashem. He wants me to express how kind he is. So therefore, I'm going to daven. I'm going to say, Hashem, you are so kind. You give me food. It was an exercise of praising Hashem. That you can do on Shabbos too. Praising Hashem, expressing gratitude. Why not? Asking, I'm in trouble, God. I'm in need. Please help me. That's not for the weekdays. Don't feel that you're in a state of misery and you need help. Even if you haven't talked to Hashem, will help you and you're serene and you're not worried. But still, the fact that you have, you need Hashem to supply you with your needs doesn't fit for Shabbos. But Rabbi Yosef, that kind of bitochen, a Shabbazik bitochen, is totally different. So the Alter Rebbe, when he wrote the second edition of Shulchan Aruch, he based it on something much deeper than the normal level of bitochen. This level of bitochen is allowed even on Shabbos. That's why the Alter Rebbe said you can say the Parsha of the Man even on Shabbos too. What the Rebbe says here is that he felt that everything depended on Hashem, and the Zohar interprets that phrase as referring to those who yearn and wait every single day to ask Hashem. He couldn't wait to be able to find another element of Hashem's chesed. He doesn't have any needs. Hashem has a need. I'm just here to allow Hashem to be able to express his kindness. That's perfectly fit with Shabbos. Your prayer is solely an expression of their longing for his kindness. This prayer expresses, the end of the page, their feeling that everything comes only as an act of Hashem's loving kindness. But this is only for a few people. The question is this for everyone? Can you expect everyone to be on that level? That's what the Rebbe goes further in the next page on 223. He says, even though the conduct of Rabbi Yosef in its entirety is something that every person can emulate, it's not something that you can emulate. Sorry, it's not in its entirety something that every person can emulate. Nevertheless, in microcosm, his approach is relevant to everyone at the very least at certain times. Perhaps on Shabbos, we can reach that level of bitochen. It can be suggested lies a difference between a weekday and a Shabbos. During the weekday, we are normal people. We are human, back to our human level. On Shabbos, every Jew becomes superhuman, and we become a little bit like Rabbi Yosef the elder. We're able to have this bitochen, this trust, looking at the world as if the world, is that real? You know, on Shabbos, when the phone rings, it sounds funny. You laugh at the phone. What are you ringing for? Don't you know it's Shabbos? We're in a different world. On Shabbos, we're expected to have a little foretaste of the level of bitochen that this great sage had. Where even when the food's on the table, we don't believe in nature. We believe in Hashem. And if Hashem says nature works, okay, Hashem can make miracles. And you feel exactly the same when Hashem is conducting himself through natural means as when he's making a miracle. That type of expression of bitochen is kosher even on Shabbos. Even though we're not on that level, but on Shabbos, every Jew is able to have a little foretaste of that level. A little bit of that, a me'ain, a semblance of that level. Just one more thing, what the Rebbe says here in the next the other Sicha is when a person has this level of bitachon, it's impossible to have a struggle. Let's say, for example, I'm going to give you the example later on. If I'm going to sit and I'm going to sit by a shir, I'm going to go to a shir, or I'm going to daven with a minyan, I'm going to be late for work. So there's a struggle now. Wait, you believe? I believe I have to work. Hashem says you have to go out. It's called cognitive dissonance. But I also believe in another reality, that Hashem is the one who tells me that you're supposed to daven with a minyan. Men have to daven with a minyan. Make sure your husband davens with a minyan. Not doesn't daven at home. No good. 3 times a day, go and daven with a minyan. I can't. I have this job. If I come late, I can't. I really can't. Tomorrow. So there's a struggle. A person who the whole reason, that's a person who believes in nature. Listen, Hashem created nature. You gotta live. We're living in the real world. So there's a conflict between the Torah, that level of my life, and the real world. When I'm doing normal things. But when you're Yosef the elder, even the normal things are part of Yiddishkeit. He didn't feel any less involved with Yiddishkeit when he was working as when he was davening. His work was the Eibishter. I can have a connection with Hashem through my work. Every little nook and cranny of his life was another expression of his connection to God. It was a godly exercise. So could one mitzvah contradict another mitzvah? How could I say to myself, I don't have time to daven with a minyan, because if I do, I will lose out. It doesn't even enter his mind. There's no struggle, because they're both part. One can't be a conflict with the other. Don't worry. Why am I going to work? And Hashem wants me. Well, the same Hashem wants me right now to daven with a minyan. What will happen? Hashem will take care of it. This person has no struggle whatsoever. And the Rebbe says in that Sicha, the Yetzer Hara sometimes helps you. He's smart. He sometimes says, yes, I think you should be a chassid. I think you should. I agree. But he puts his own 2 cents. Who cares about what you say? It's dangerous to accept to do what's right because the Yetzer Hara agrees. Because the next time he's going to say, this time I don't agree. Don't ask him for his approval. We don't need his approval. Even if he happens to approve of the good things. Our connection to be what's right, not what your, other side of you has come to the conclusion that it's right. Today he says, do this. Do the right thing, and tomorrow we'll say do the wrong thing, the little small wrong things, and the bigger wrong things, until he tells you to worship idols. That's what the Gemara says. Starts from agreeing with you. Sure, Chas v'shalom, you're learning in yeshiva, you're from. Obviously, no, God forbid, there's no be a chassid. But it's his idea. You got his approval, then you're in trouble. Don't look for the approval of the part of you that's natural, that's When you serve Hashem, you just put everything aside. So this is the Nakuda of this Sicha here about the man. The other Sicha was a Sicha about the future when Mashiach will come. Every Jew, even during the weekdays, will reach this level of bitachon that we talked about in this Sicha here. So for nowadays, on Shabbos is like a me'ain of Mashiach. We can have a foretaste of Mashiach on Shabbos. In the future, it'll be a natural thing for us to have this level of bitachon that the laws of nature itself will be. It says science will bring you closer to Yiddishkeit. You open a science book, it'll help you get closer to Yiddishkeit. Science now has questions on Judaism. Torah and science sometimes seem to conflict. When Mashiach will come, science, math, will bring you closer to Yiddishkeit. It'll be a natural phenomenon. How else could it be? You'll tell your kids, I'm going to stop over here, you're going to tell your kids who Mitzvah Hashem will be living after Mashiach comes. And they're going to say, Tati, Mom, you didn't see God in this? Well, you go to an eye doctor? And you're so cute. I think you're cute, Tati and Mommy. You really didn't see? How could you not see it? It's so clear. They're going to wonder, how can Golas be so blocking, so dark?
Just like you see today, your 5 fingers in front of you, that's how you will see godliness. It'll be a natural thing. It won't be something to wow about. You won't be wowing about it. What else is new? V'ro kol basar yachdav, basar, flesh, will naturally see a lakus, like the eye today sees what you see. Just as natural. No need for it. It's not a miracle. But that's for us, love. That's for Mashiach. That's for the second stage of Mashiach. To come to be today. Story I wanted to tell you is a phenomenal story about Iran for the Tanya. There are 8,000 editions of Tanya already printed. There ever wanted Tanya to be printed everywhere in the world where Jews live, including Iran. So it was a big problem. They printed the Tanya right before the revolution where the Khomeini took over. It was a big issue. What do we do now? They had 200 Tanya books in the library there. I don't know what's the name of the library in Tehran, Jewish library there. It was on the floor. They had them run for their lives, but the Imam Khomeini started the revolution. And when he instituted a Zera, if anyone is caught with a book that's not related to him, connected to anything, certainly if it's connected to the Shah or any previous Persian leaders, or anything that is not connected to their belief, and Jews that were from the Kabbalah Hasidim that were scared. Guess what happened? A month later, after the revolution, a month or two later, they had guests at their door. 2 inspectors came to inspect. What is that on the floor? Books on the floor. And they said, well, this is like Tanya. What's that? They started explaining it. Read it. They're reading Shah Yichud Ben Munah. Now, Hashem did not only create the world once, but he's recreating the world every single second. And if Hashem would stop recreating the world every second, the world would revert back to absolute nothingness. The guy's eyes, wow. Takes the Tanya, he gives it a kiss. And he said, such a book like this doesn't need to be expected. Please forgive us for going for trespassing. And the Chassid was shocked. And he said, can you please make sure that we don't have any other inspectors? No problem. That was one story. The Tanya story, even in Tehran, with its ruthless, evil people, but yet the Tanya made them buckle. We respect. We don't have any problem with religious Jews, with people who respect and believe in God, in Allah, and God. We have no problem with that. There's another story I'll tell you. That's right.
Thank you.
I don't know.